My name is Karen Henderson and I am a speech and language therapist working in disability services in Dublin, and this is a very short presentation to explain to you the benefits and the use of the new communication displays which are being implemented by the IRFU as part of their Spirit of Rugby initiative. So what are these communication displays? Well, they're actually specialised communication systems, not just colourful signage, that have been designed by speech and language therapists and based on principles of child language development. They're very, very particular and specific in terms of the layout, which supports grammar and sentence building, and they're also very specifically colour-coded based on the parts of speech. The benefit of them really is to provide a level of communication inclusion in community settings. And you may well have seen them cropping up in various places around the country, most particularly in playgrounds over the last year or two. These are a few examples of ones that have been done by private businesses and also by local county councils, and they follow a very similar layout to the one that's being used by the IRFU. So why do you need these communication displays? Well, communication difficulties are highly prevalent in children and young people who have intellectual disability, autism, ADHD, hearing impairment, etc. And they're also of big benefit to children and young people who have English as a second language. So we'll go through these in a bit more detail as regards the benefits for the coaches and the players. But in a broad sense, they support the coach's message to be understood and also support the player to communicate in turn. They support inclusion, so it means that children who have communication difficulties and disabilities are able to participate in mainstream community-based sports activities such as rugby. They break down communication barriers by providing a shared language between the adults and the children, and also between the children themselves. And they support those with additional communication needs to achieve their potential, which is all in the spirit of the IRFU's disability policy. So who would benefit from these communication displays? Well, many children with disabilities have difficulties understanding language, not just the amount of language that adults use with them, but also the complexity of the words that they use. So these boards are really good in providing a visual representation of what you're saying to support their understanding. For the same reason, lots of kids may have difficulty with auditory processing and memory, so there may be way too much information for them to process and remember and respond to because it's all delivered verbally. So it's all auditory processing. Many children have difficulties expressing their needs or their wishes and their emotions because they don't have the verbal language to do so. Some children may have difficulty asking questions and clarifying, again, because they don't have the words or because they don't know how. Many children may have difficulty following a sequence, so they may have difficulty remembering all the steps in an instruction that's given, particularly if that instruction is given verbally. So again, that goes back to auditory processing and memory. Many children may also have difficulty with numbers and letters, so we've included them on the board. And there may be many children who have unclear speech, so it's very difficult for the adults and for the other children to understand what they're saying. So in being able to point to a picture, they're able to provide a bit of context and tune the ear of the listener in. We're hoping as children's communication improves and their ability to follow and to engage improves, that this will have a knock-on effect on their relationship building, social interaction and self-esteem. You may come across some children who have difficulties with emotional regulation. So they find it hard to wait, they find it hard to listen, they find it hard to take direction. And most of the time, this can be due to the fact that it's all being given verbally and it's an awful lot of auditory processing for them. So again, having the pictures may help regulate their emotions and that they know it's expected of them and they know what they're supposed to do, which ties in then with predicting and problem solving. So again, a lot of children may have difficulty predicting what's going to come next, predicting what you're going to say, and to be able to problem solve for themselves. So having the pictures can be a really nice way of supporting them to do this. So in using the pictures, what you're doing is you're supporting the child's comprehension, their understanding, you're supporting their language processing, you're supporting their ability to retain information and to remember what you're saying. You're also supporting their listening and attention, because if they have to look at the board and look at you, they're actually paying more attention than if you're just talking to them. As we've said, it'll support sequencing, hopefully help support communication with their peers as well, and provide consistency across rugby facilities. So if you go to a club in Dublin and you have the board, the exact same board is being used in Limerick, in Cork, in Galway. So it does provide a level of consistency across the sport. So how do they work for coaches? As we said, they provide a visual representation of what you're saying. They support you to simplify your language, because you'll actually have to slow down a little bit because you have to focus on pointing to pictures as you're talking. They support consistency in your message. So even if your word shifts slightly from one training session to another, the picture will always stay the same. It may well support you to break down instructions into manageable steps. Really, it's just getting you thinking, have I given too much information? Do I need to break it down a little bit more? As we've said, it may help you hold the attention of the players a little bit better and also help you understand when the player's speech is unclear. So, how do you use a communication board? Well, very simply, you point to the pictures as you're talking. So you don't have to point to every picture in the sentence that matches the words that you're saying. What you really do is you point to key words in the sentence, the really important information that you want the child to be listening to and paying attention to. So for example, you could point to one picture to correspond to a whole sentence. For example, okay everybody, are you listening? You could maybe point to two pictures in one sentence. For example, okay everybody, coach is talking. You could maybe do two pictures for a longer sentence because it's a two-part instruction. Okay everybody, get in pairs and practice your passing. Don't forget to use all those lovely purple words at the end, which are all the social phrases. So you could say, well done everybody, to reinforce the praise at the end of the sentence. You could also use it to illustrate a sequence. For example, first have a drink, then line up. So as speech and language therapists, we very much advocate what we call a total communication approach, and this is considered best practice. So a total communication approach is really about using a variety of methods, all of which have value to convey a message. And the communication displays are one part of this total communication approach. But there's lots of other things that you do as coaches to help convey a message to the players. And if we think that 93% of the meaning of any message is conveyed non-verbally, it means that all the other things that you do are actually contributing to the meaning more than the words that you say. So the voice, your intonation, your facial expressions, your gestures, if you might be showing an object in your hand as you're talking, all of these things help convey meaning and are very, very helpful and can be used alongside the communication displays. So other things you can do as part of total communication is to break down skills into manageable steps and present them visually. So what you do is you usually pair the image with a gesture and an action to support the learning. Use a very consistent phrase with it, and then you consider rephrasing the language if the words are unfamiliar. So for example, reposition in the example we have there. So there you can see a very simple task like spin pass on the run divided up into 4 steps, all presented visually as a picture and one sentence to go along. And like we've said, if reposition is a word that's a bit tricky or unfamiliar, then you would just explain what reposition means. You could also present the pictures individually. So you could have all the pictures from the display printed out individually and attached on a clip to be worn around your neck on a lanyard. I actually use this a lot, and it's very, very handy in having your hands free, but also having the individual pictures available to you when you need them. So if, for example, you're working on a specific skill or a specific drill and you don't need the full board, then having something like this could be really useful, and you can present the pictures individually one at a time. Another communication support would be something like this. So providing easy read information to support learning. So this is information that could be taken home and referred to again and again by the child or the young person, and would hopefully support independence. So if, for example, you want the kids to remember all the things that they need to bring for the next training session, if you were to just tell them verbally, that's 3 things they need to remember, and it may not be possible from an auditory processing and memory point of view. But if you were to send it home like as a 1-page like this, things I need to remember for training: I must wear my boots, I must bring my mouth guard, I must bring water. That's something that they have at home that they can refer back to independently themselves. Maybe they get themselves more independently organised for the next training and have all the things they need with them. Another thing you could use would be law of signs. So these are law of signs that relate to ball sports such as rugby or GAA or soccer. And you use them in the same way that you use the pictures. So as you're speaking, you're signing the key words in your sentence. The beauty of these is that you can use them with pictures, you can use them with objects, you can use them as part of a total communication approach, all within the one sentence. And many of the children may not know what the signs mean, so you may have to spend a little bit of time using them so the kids become familiar with them. But they are a very, very useful part of the total communication system. And LOV is the sign system used in Ireland. So that is the one that most schools would be using and disability services. So if the children are using LOV at all, these would be the signs that they would be most familiar with. Other really simple things are to use videos. Sometimes a visual representation, like a video, is a really nice way of teaching something. It might be easier for the kids to follow. Or to use colour-coded equipment. So if you're using colour coding, and then you could have pictures of the colours and you could show the colour, okay, everyone go to the orange cones, or all the yellow bibs come over here. Something like that. Again, it's another visual tool and is very, very useful. So I hope that's all made a lot of sense. I'm sure if you have any questions, you can ask David McKay and he can redirect them back to me. That's absolutely no problem. And I wish you all the best of luck, and I look forward to seeing the communication displays in use.